Spotify lost over 4 billion euros across 16 straight years, not because they couldn't figure out how to make money, because making money was never the point. By the end of this video, you're going to understand what Spotify was actually building while everyone thought they were just a music app, because the product was never the music. The product was something they couldn't sell until they owned the one thing no record label, no radio station, and no tech company had ever controlled before: your attention, at scale, for hours, every single day. It's 2006. The music industry is on fire, and not in a good way. Napster already ripped the business model apart. Piracy is rampant. CD sales have cratered, and two guys in Stockholm, Daniel Ek and Martin Lorentzen, look at this chaos and see something nobody else does. They don't see a music problem, they see an attention problem. Millions of people are already spending hours a day listening to music, but nobody owns that behavior. Radio is dying. iTunes charges per song. Piracy is free but unreliable. Ek's pitch was simple. What if you could stream anything instantly, legally, for free? What if the price of admission was just listening? Spotify launched in October 2008, invite only, Europe first, and from day one it bled money. Here's where most people get the story wrong. They think Spotify tried to be profitable and failed. That's not what happened. Spotify chose to lose money strategically for over a decade. Look at the numbers. 2013 lost 63 million euros. 2014 lost 188 million. 2015 lost 230 million. 2016 lost 539 million. 2017, their worst year, they lost 1.2 billion euros in a single 12-month stretch. And they kept going. They raised more money, they expanded to new countries, they signed more licensing deals that they knew would cost more than they'd earn. Wall Street analysts kept asking the same question: when will Spotify turn a profit? And Daniel Ek kept giving the same non-answer. He told CNBC he wasn't interested in the four walls of a spreadsheet. He was playing a longer game. But here's what nobody was asking, and this is the question that changes everything. If Spotify wasn't trying to make money from music, what were they building? To understand what Spotify built, you need to understand what it isn't. Spotify is not a music store, it's not even really a streaming service. It's a behavioral data machine that happens to use music as bait. Every time you press play, Spotify learns, not just what you listened to, but when you listened, for how long, whether you skipped, whether you saved, what you were doing, what device you were on, where you were. They process millions of data events per day. They know that you listen to Focus playlists at 9 a.m. and Sad Indie at 11 p.m. They know when you're working out, commuting, or falling asleep, and they've been collecting this data on hundreds of millions of people across 184 countries for nearly 2 decades. Now, what do you do with that kind of information? You sell it. Not the raw data, that would be too obvious. You sell access to the behavior the data describes. This is what Spotify calls its two-sided marketplace. On one side, listeners, 751 million of them. On the other side, artists, labels, and advertisers, all of whom want to reach those ears, and Spotify sits in the middle, controlling the feed. Now you might be thinking, okay, they collect data, so does every tech company. And you'd be right. But here's where Spotify does something that most tech companies don't. They got the artists to pay them. In 2020, Spotify quietly launched a tool called Discovery Mode. Here's how it works. If you're an artist and you want the Spotify algorithm to push your song to more listeners, to show up in more radio sessions, autoplay cues, and personalized mixes, you can flip a switch. But the price isn't cash. The price is a 30% cut of your royalties on every stream generated through that boost. Read that again. Spotify doesn't charge you to promote your music. They take a percentage of what you earn. That's not advertising, that's a commission. And the listener, they have no idea. The song that just showed up in your Discover Weekly, the one that felt handpicked for your taste, it might be there because someone is paying for it with their own earnings. And Discovery Mode isn't the only tool. There's Marquee, a full-screen pop-up ad that hits listeners when they open the app. There's Showcase, a banner in the home feed. Both run on a cost-per-click model starting at $100 These aren't optional extras. For many artists, they're the only way to get heard on a platform with over 100 million tracks. Now think about what this means for Spotify's business model. They pay artists royalties with one hand, nearly $70 billion total through 2025. And with the other hand, they've built a system where those same artists pay back for the privilege of being heard. That's not a streaming service, that's a toll booth. So now you have the answer. What was Spotify building during those 16 years of losses? They weren't building a music player, they were building a distribution choke point, a single gateway that sits between every artist on Earth and the ears of 751 million people. And once you control that gateway, you don't need to make money on music. You make money on access. But let's talk about what this machine does to the people inside it. In January 2025, journalist Liz Pelly published an investigation in Harper's Magazine that blew a hole in Spotify's image. She revealed an internal program called Perfect Fit Content, PFC. Here's what it was. Spotify employees would commission cheap instrumental tracks, ambient, lo-fi, sleep sounds, jazz, from production companies. These tracks were released under completely fabricated artist names. No social media, no touring history, no biography, just phantom profiles with billions of collective streams. Why? Because these flat-fee tracks were cheaper than paying per-stream royalties to real independent musicians. By flooding mood-based playlists, the ones for studying, sleeping, relaxing, with this ghost content, Spotify could reduce its overall royalty obligations while keeping listeners engaged. Spotify denies creating fake artists, but Pelly's investigation documented internal records, named production entities like Firefly Entertainment behind hundreds of pseudonymous profiles, and quoted former employees who said playlist editors were pressured to prioritize PFC tracks. Source 6. And then there's the structural impact on music itself. Spotify's algorithm only counts a stream and pays a royalty after you've listened for 30 seconds. If your song gets skipped before that mark, it doesn't just earn nothing, it gets punished. Skip rates above 35% in the first 30 seconds trigger algorithmic suppression. Your song gets buried. So what do artists do? They adapt. Intros disappear. Bridges get cut. Hooks move to the first 5 seconds. The average hit song has been getting shorter every year, and analysts project the average could hit 2 minutes by 2030. Spotify isn't just distributing music, it's reshaping what music sounds like. And by the way, there's one more piece of this that almost nobody talks about. Remember Spotify Wrapped? That cute year-end thing you share on Instagram? We'll come back to that. In 2024, after 16 years of red ink, Spotify reported its first full-year net profit, 1.14 billion euros. The following year, 2.21 billion euros. The losses were over. But they didn't get there by fixing the music model. They got there by proving that the music model was never broken, because it was never the real product. The path to profitability ran through 3 moves. First, 2 price hikes within 11 months. Second, laying off more than 2,300 employees in 2023. And third, the quiet one, scaling the two-sided marketplace until artists, labels, and advertisers were collectively paying Spotify for the very access that Spotify's platform had made essential. And Wrapped? That's the cherry on top. Every December, Spotify takes an entire year's worth of behavioral surveillance, every play, every skip, every 2 a.m. listening session, and repackages it as a shareable, Instagram-ready infographic. And you love it? You post it voluntarily? You tell the world exactly what you listen to, how much, and when? That's not a feature. That's a free, global advertising campaign powered by your own data, and it works. The FOMO it generates drives new signups every year. So here's the full picture. Spotify spent 16 years losing billions of dollars to build a machine that sits between every artist and every listener on the planet, collects behavioral data at a scale no radio station ever dreamed of, charges artists to access their own audience, commissions ghost content to lower costs, reshapes how music is composed to serve its algorithm, and then gets its users to market the whole thing for free every December. That's not a music company. That's a control system. Spotify lost 4 billion euros over 16 years. And it turns out every cent of it was an investment in owning the space between the song and your ears. The next time a track shows up in your Discover Weekly and it feels like Spotify just gets you, ask yourself, who's paying for that feeling? Spotify spent 16 years losing money to build a business you can't walk away from. That's the real playbook. And nobody runs it harder than casinos. Every carpet, every light, every missing clock is engineered to keep you in the chair. Here's the psychology behind it.